Guru Nation, welcome back to another episode. This is going to be a classic. We have the CRA Academy instructor, um, Tiffany, all the way from now Atlanta, Georgia.
Hmm.
Students of the CRA Academy, they know who Tiffany is. She's been teaching our CRA Academy since the beginning. She's co-founder with us. Me and Chris and you, Tiffany Bennett, we had a dream one
We
day.
did have a dream.
We said, I don't want to do revisionist history because I don't really remember how it happened.
Yeah.
All I remember is people kept asking me, um, hey, can you train me how to be a CRA? And I kept saying no. No, no,
Hmm.
no, no, no. And it was like
Hmm.
30 people. And then I
Hmm.
was like, shoot, maybe we have something here. And
Hmm.
then I honestly don't know how, like, I talked to Chris, and then we both said, well, we should ask Tiffany because I don't even remember why, but
I
for some reason we
remember.
chose you.
I remember because we had our site in Bakersfield.
Oh, we were site partners back then. We're gonna get
Yeah.
to that like somewhere in the middle. That's gonna be sandwiched in
Okay.
to your group.
Okay.
So that's why.
Yeah,
Because
we
I'm
were
thinking,
coming off the heels of that.
well, we couldn't have picked a better person because you were at the time a CRA and you were a overworked CRA, which is we can't not discuss the bad about being a CRA as well. Everybody
Yeah.
sees the glamour. And I know we're
Hmm.
trying to like raise awareness for our CRA Academy, so it would make sense for us to not talk about the bad. I actually
Hmm.
want to focus on the bad almost as much as the good because
Well, I
they go
mean, we
hand
want
in
to be,
hand.
they do. We want to be truthful and honest, and
Yeah.
they call us road warriors for a reason.
And if it means one less student join, but we had no problems filling our last class. I thought
Hmm.
like I was ready to turn off the website, Tiffany. Like
Really?
even now, like we just got someone join the other day. I'm like, dude, we need to like turn this thing off right now. We can't
Uh,
we can't take I think we're at
yeah.
21 and we said 15 to 20 max.
Hmm.
We're at
Hmm.
21, 22 if you include the student that has to retake it. Um
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. I mean, it's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah, but like so I kept getting these things back in 2015. People kept
Hmm.
asking, "Hey, how do you do this?" At the time, I never had CRA experience. So
Hmm.
I told
Hmm.
Chris like, "Hey, first of all, I hate teaching. I can do it on a video, but I hate teaching like
I didn't know that.
person." I got better now, but I used to hate it. And then I'm not a CRA.
Hmm.
How are we gonna do this? And
Hmm.
I think you were like the natural choice because we were working with you. At that time, we were talking every day,
Right.
because we were starting up that site in Bakersfield.
Right.
But Tiffany's somebody that I knew for long before then, maybe since like 2012 or something like that.
And I asked you, I think I asked you for, or I bought a investigator contract or
You
something
did.
like that.
You were like one of my first clients when
Yeah, and I
I
watched
didn't
your
even know
videos
what
on
I was
YouTube.
doing. Yeah, you watch a video on YouTube, you called me. I was like,
Hmm.
okay, this girl's pretty cool. She's local, so that's awesome.
Hmm.
And you were like, hey, I need an investigator contract. So I had a business partner that was an attorney at the time, and he was
Hmm.
making one for me. So I was like, hey, how much does it cost to make one? So that's how we
Hmm.
started out talking about that.
Hmm.
Um,
That was over, it's been almost 10 years since we known each other.
it's
A
been more
little
than 10
over.
years. That was 2012.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so a whole decade knowing you and business partner and CRA Academy's been now since 2016 officially. So that's
It's
6 years
6 years. Yeah, six
going
years
on
and
7.
9 months to be exact.
And we've
Hmm.
improved it a lot. We're actually gonna improve it more.
Hmm.
But Tiffany, somebody who like Southern California native, like myself, went to USC, ran track, got a scholarship. You got a full ride
Full
for
ride
running track?
scholarship.
You are fast. We always talk about who could win in a sprint. I'm pretty sure. I don't know.
Uh,
In your prime, you could beat me. I don't know about now, but I was pretty fast too. Never ran track though.
yeah, well, the thing about it, I had been running track since I can remember, like 10 years old. I ran from 10 to 23 years old.
See, it's the form and the
Long
coaching.
time.
I just had the
Yeah.
raw, just never coach, but
Hmm.
I feel like if I have one regret, it's that I didn't run track in high school and college. But
Mm.
anyways, Tiffany, USC, what was your major?
I majored in health promotion and disease prevention studies. It was a pre-med major.
Pre-med, so you always had that on your mind. And clinical
Like kind of,
research?
sort of. Yeah. Well, the thing about it, I knew I wanted to go into health. I think I went through a couple of different majors in college, as most, well, maybe not most, but some college students do when you're trying to decide. And I was a kinesiology major for a minute because of sports, and I wanted to
Yep.
be a physical therapist. And then those classes were a little challenging while trying to run track at the same time. So I kind of switched to, I wanted to do something in health, and so that was like the next best thing. But it's kind of like a public health degree, just an undergrad.
I always wondered, so running track, like, I mean, track's still a big sport, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like basketball or football at USC where
Mm-hmm.
all the attention's on you, but track's up there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you with the track, do you feel like you were able to focus on the studies enough, or do you feel like um because of the fact that you had to run track, you had to like compromise a little bit on the studying, or were you able to pull it off?
I mean, I graduated and I was able to pull it off,
That's like me, and
but
I
it was
didn't
hard.
run play sports.
It was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, but
Mm,
totally worth it, you
worth it,
know.
worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what they do is like when you're training,
Are there any videos of you running track at USC?
um, it's been a long time, Dan.
I
I
gotta
don't
look it up.
no, you don't.
I'll
You
look it
don't
up.
have you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. It's been a long time. But I
Okay.
think it it taught me like how to just grind. Like I learned that grind,
Hmm.
you know, at a very early age. And USC is, it's one of the
Top
top
tier.
schools. So
Like, yeah, when academics
it
or
was a
athletics.
challenge. It was very challenging, but it was worth it.
My current PI went to USCT.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the guy here in Yuma, Dr. Smith. Do you think that prepared you for the grind of being a CRA?
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially, I mean, when you're working as a CRA, we're road warriors. So beyond learning the protocol and like presenting to doctors and making sure that everything is, FDA compliant and following ICH-GCP, you have the other side of it where you have to book your travel and, you know, write your reports and your expense reports. And so that kind of, getting into that groove, it just, I feel like because of all the hard work I did before, I was kind of ready for it. But even though it took me about 3 years to actually become a CRA once I graduated
Okay.
college.
What, 3 years? Yeah, we're gonna get into that process
Hmm.
right now. I forgot to thank the sponsor, Viva. Viva, you've used Viva as a CRA?
I have. Uh-huh. It's been a while, but yeah.
What do you think? What did you think back then?
I liked it.
All right, you could be honest. Don't have to, but that's good. So Viva, I don't know if you know now, but Viva, thank you, the sponsor. They want sites. They're giving e-regulatory for free to sites. So sites,
Oh,
and we're
okay.
actually, I didn't even tell you yet, but we're always improving the CRA Academy. We're
Hmm.
going to be using some of it. We're developing it for using it during the internship. But it's e-regulatory. So if you're a site and you're like, hey, I have all these paper reg binders, they can take up a lot of space, they're inefficient. You can just put it on Viva Site Vault for free. Sites.viva.com. It's called Viva Site Vault, and it's absolutely free. They don't want anything. They just approve your email and that's it. Then you can create like all your studies, put your folder. They support e-signatures, electronic delegation of authorities log. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Nice.
They're playing the long game. They want sites to start using it because they understand if more sites use it, more sponsors are
Mm-hmm.
gonna pay them for
Mm-hmm.
their other services, which is Trial Master File and all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff, which we'll get into. So, anyways, thank you, Viva, for being the sponsor of the podcast. Now back to Tiffany Bennett, co-founder of the CRA Academy. So, USC, did you know about research while in school? Clinical research.
No, I did not.
So, how did you
I did
discover
not.
clinical research?
I honestly, I fell into it by accident. It's a hidden industry. I graduated and I said, okay, it's time to find a job. I needed a job with benefits. I started applying in because I was in LA. You know, I'm from Central Valley. I'm from Bakersfield. So I was
Ah,
like, I didn't really,
wait,
I
I
mean,
didn't
it's
know
not that I
you
did.
went. You went to high school there?
Yeah, I was born and
Oh,
raised in
okay.
Bakersfield.
I thought you were like around LA, not Bakersfield. All right.
No.
Ah,
So
okay.
yeah. No, I'm born and raised in Bakersfield. And yeah, so I mean, I just thought that there was more opportunity in LA. So I
Yep.
just stayed and I worked for USC for a little bit for my I guess it's kind of like an internship kind of for the Institute for Preventive Research. And it was part of what I needed to graduate. And so that's kind of how I got into research, but it wasn't clinical research. So with that little bit of experience that I had, like 7 months or something, I just started applying to jobs that just had the title research in it. And then I ended up getting an administrative assistant, research administrative assistant job in downtown LA. And that job was clinical research. And that's when I learned,
That's when you learned. So that was like a regular site, like
yes, oncology.
oncology. That
Mm-hmm.
makes a lot of sense because that you've kind of stayed true to that niche or
Mm-hmm.
that subset. It's not really a niche, it's its own thing. The busiest
Mm-hmm.
part of research every year is oncology
Mm-hmm.
research. Okay.
Right. So I was responsible for the regulatory documents, not necessarily like, source docs or anything like that. I was administrative assistant, and then I was responsible for all the regulatory binders, and there were over like
Wow.
30 oncology studies that they were doing. So I got a crash course in regulatory as my first job. And
See,
then
Viva would have been great for you back then if the technology was there.
yeah, yeah, all the filing, finding the protocol study number and looking at 1572's financial disclosures protocols. So it was a whole crash course.
And from there, how long did you stay there, regulatory administrator?
Not very long. I was
What happened?
there. I just wanted something. I don't know. I think what happened was I had got um someone contacted me in regards to being a study coordinator or project coordinator. I can't remember. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Project coordinator. And then I ended up actually working with a different oncology group after that in data management. And then I worked
Okay.
for, yeah. So I
You've
did
done
that.
everything.
Yeah, at that time, well, the thing about it, when you're in research, so just to take a one step back, like I always had a goal, an end goal of becoming a CRA because
Since when? Since when?
since the administrative research job,
So you
because
learned what
I
CRAs were like right
saw
there.
the whole, yeah, because I was an admin and I was doing administrative work and regulatory work. My boss was telling me about the CRA that will be here during this time, and this binder needs to be ready so they could, monitor it. And I would just see all these CRAs coming into the office, and I'm just like, what is this about? Like, what is a CRA? What is a clinical research associate? What are they doing? And that from that point, I did a lot of research on what CRAs are, and then I just kind of made my way.
What was attractive to you though? Was it the salary? CRAs get paid a lot. They actually get paid
Mm-hmm,
like the most in the industry. And a
mm-hmm,
lot of that is, I mean, I feel like a lot of that has to do with how much you're sacrificing to be a CRA, which we're definitely gonna get
mm-hmm,
into pretty soon
mm-hmm.
here. But like, was that the main attractant, or did you just
No,
want?
no, no.
Mhm.
I don't think, I mean, that would definitely like was um that definitely was like a factor, but it wasn't the main thing because of how challenging it is to actually become a CRA. So my objective was just to get to some enough experience under my belt to where I can even have the opportunity to be a CRA. And then the
Yeah.
salary, all that stuff came later. But I think what I liked
Wow.
about it was the fact that from what I read and what I saw, that they were traveling. They weren't in one place. So that was the first thing that I think attracted me to it, because you get to go to different places and, see different at that time. This is what I thought, that you got to spend a lot of time in the places where you're going
Yeah.
and
Do you think,
travel.
yeah, everyone thinks it's so glamorous. There's like these TikTok series now, and it's so obvious they're just curating the best parts. Like,
Yeah, you
they're
can
like,
do
here's a day in the life, and they show them getting
it.
ready in the morning, getting breakfast at a hotel. They don't show like being at the site and like writing the report. They just show like
Hmm.
the glamorous parts, so everybody thinks, oh wow.
Exactly. So that's the same thing that drew me to it too. So
I
I mean,
see.
it's a great job, but I feel like, you got to be ready for, unless you're an in-house CRA, you got to be ready for that
So
road warrior
how
life.
did you transition from site to CRO? Was it straight to CRA or you did in-house first?
No, I did a little in-house work as like a project coordinator, project assistant, working for different like biotechnology companies and
Hmm.
pharmaceutical companies after becoming a data manager.
All oncology?
No, it wasn't oncology. It was we worked on like hemophilia studies. Like it was like a I don't
Hmm.
want to call it rare disease, but it was well, it was mostly administrative. So I wasn't even training on the protocol. I was more of the project manager and CRA's like right hand. So it's
Okay.
kind of like an in-house CRA, but more just like administrative, but I'm working with them, but I'm not like necessarily trained
Yeah.
on the protocol because I didn't have to execute that at that time.
And this was before like the role of like a remote site monitor or an in-house. Now it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like we deal more with our in-house CRAs than we do our actual CRAs for the studies now as a site. Like,
Yeah, they're taking some of the responsibilities off the CRAs because it I think because also I mean, I think one is the complexity of the protocols. They're more challenging, and you really, like I was saying earlier, you gotta really be that liaison and that site person, and it's
mhm.
hard to balance all of the things. So I think sponsors are, delegating more responsibilities to their in-house team, which takes some of the pressure off being a CRA because
Yeah,
you could be overworked.
it makes sense from a retention standpoint also.
Yeah, it's
Um,
more building the relationship with the doctors, because sites don't necessarily like when they always have a new CRA.
no, and CRAs don't like when, I mean, as much as CRAs want to be helpful, I remember when I was coordinating back in the day, I would call my CRA. No matter where she was, she'd answer her phone. She'd be on another site visit. And I remember she
Mm-hmm.
was at my site monitoring, and sites would call her and she would answer.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
now that's kind of not the case anymore because they have like in-house and remote site
Mm-hmm.
monitors that should be able,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes sense, but I don't know why it didn't
Mm-hmm.
make sense back in the day. I guess the industry wasn't developed enough yet.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think, like I said, I think it has more to do with just the number of protocols that CRAs are assigned and the complexity of them.
Yeah. It's crazy
Maybe,
busy right now too.
yeah, it's always busy. Yeah, I feel like, I don't know.
So then you went from that role. Was that at a biotech or a sponsor or at a CRO?
Yeah, sponsor. I
Sponsor.
didn't start working for CROs until I actually started monitoring. Yeah. And so
So with the biotech, you started sponsor, you started monitoring, like they sent
no,
you
no,
to
no.
sites. Oh,
No,
okay.
no, 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 no. When I became, so after being like a project assistant, I think, or project coordinator for like a couple of years and working for a few different sponsors, well, like I said, I was kind of, I guess I was an in-house CRA, but they just, all these companies have different titles and stuff, but that's typically the work that I did, was assisting CRAs. And then I got my entry level CRA position with quintiles in
Mm.
2008. And then that's where it all started.
That's IQVIA for those that don't know.
IQVIA, yep,
They
yeah.
don't know quintiles. Only like OGs know
Hmm.
quintiles.
I
Um,
know, I know. I should have
so
said that.
well, it's okay. That's what I'm here for. So I'm imagining because this is only a few years into your career, you've
Hmm.
already had like three or four jobs that we've
Hmm.
named so far. Were
Hmm.
the interview processes easy? Were you recruited, or did you have to seek these new positions?
No, I had to seek the new positions. I
Ah,
was
okay.
just applying like crazy, and they just had it. And the interview, I remember going into it and trying to prepare as much as possible, like the situational and behavioral questions
You
and
love that. You
getting,
teach that in the class.
I do, yeah. Yeah, and trying to be prepared. And I got there, and the the interviewer just started telling me about the position, asked me a few questions about my background, and that was it. I got a call like the next week saying I got the job. So I don't think that they were focused. I think that to get to that point, they were hiring so many like entry level CRAs that they just wanted to train new people.
Hmm.
So as long as you had, I mean, that's just kind of, I mean, it was a long time ago, but that's kind of how the feeling I had. Like it wasn't very difficult
Yeah.
because they knew I was entry level. So it's not like they would ask me about source documents and ask me about like monitoring scenarios because they know I never monitored before. So
They
that's
knew
kind of
you had transferable skills that with a little tweaking, you can do the job.
basically,
Because
yeah.
back then, just like now, there was a huge shortage of
Hmm.
any kind of workers in the space. That's, by the way, nothing's
Hmm.
changed. It's probably gotten worse.
Possibly. I mean, and that's kind of why I like I keep going back to the same thing. This is the like the number one thing. Like it's a hidden industry. People do not know about
Still,
clinical research, even still.
still.
Like I have people who know I work in this industry and they're constantly asking me, what do you do again? And I'm just like, okay, so you know those commercials on TV, right? With the FDA approved medicines, I have to start with what they see on TV and then work my way back to how it gets to that point.
Yeah, yeah.
That's like my conversation. That's the best way I can like describe it.
Yeah,
So
people think we're in the lab like inventing molecules.
exactly. I'm just like, not so much.
You're right, it is a hidden industry. So
Hmm.
IQVIA, they're known, well, quintiles, they're
Hmm.
known for exactly what they did with you, take on and
Hmm.
like inexperienced people who have potential. So maybe
Hmm.
coordinators, or in your case, you weren't coordinator, you went from sponsor and site level to um, CRA.
Hmm.
They're known and probably still known for taking people who have experience but not monitoring experience and then
Hmm.
training them and basically overworking them. I mean, I don't know if that's still the case, but that's the reputation they have. It's
Hmm.
like we don't mind being the first ones to give this
Hmm.
person, Tiffany, a chance
Hmm.
at being a CRA, and that comes
Hmm.
with a huge salary increase, but
Hmm.
we're gonna work her like crazy. And I think
And you
that's
don't
still
know
the strategy.
whether it's on purpose or not. I think that that's the part that because it's challenging to become a CRA already, right? I
Hmm.
mean, they want you to have a certain amount of experience, but at the same time, like they also know that you don't know what you don't know, I feel like.
Hmm.
And so you're not going to say no to the work or you're not going to have anything else to compare it to. And you need to get the experience. So, I
So your
mean,
first week, let's go with your first week at Quintiles. Like, how did that work? What'd you
the
do?
first week I forgot where I went, but it
This
was
was
like
before
on,
remote jobs, right? You had to go to an office somewhere.
yeah, I flew to, I can't remember, I want to say somewhere Midwest from LA, and
Okay.
we did training there for about a couple of weeks
Mm.
just before going on site.
Was it Overland Park, Kansas?
I had something like that.
All
Yeah.
right. Yeah, they have a big
And
facility there.
yeah, and so we did all of the training, and then I think some was even at like a hotel, like a conference room. Um, if I mean, I might be. It's sorry, Dan. It's been a while, so
Yeah, I mean,
I
who
don't
can?
remember exactly where, but I just know that it was me and a bunch of other, like you said, coordinators, people who used to be coordinators,
Yeah,
people from all different, different previous roles.
yeah.
Um, and we just sat there and they took us through the whole, kind of like what we do for the CRA Academy. They took us
They
through
don't
the
do that
whole,
anymore though. Now it's all remote. Like they do it on Zooms and they give them a bunch
yeah,
of video modules.
yeah, yeah,
I
save
think
money that way.
you get the good experience. It's being that you were around. This is a industry hot topic. It's kind of a bit of a tangent, but we'll come back. The diversity in clinical research. You were, I mean, from my experience, when I started in research, like I remember my CRAs,
Mhm.
they were all white women, all
Mm.
until about I started seeing a shift like 2010, 2012. I started seeing more minorities. Still
Hmm.
mostly women, but
Hmm.
more
Hmm.
minorities. So when you were doing this training, it must have been like '08, '09, I'm guessing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Were you like in this room getting trained? Were you like the only black person there, or were there others?
That's a good question. I know that there weren't very many black
Did it ever
people.
stand out to you like, hey, or
You know what? Honestly, because of I was, it stood out before then. It stood out before becoming a CRA.
yeah,
I felt like from the sponsors that I worked for, there weren't very many, you know,
yeah.
people of color
I think the industry
already,
made
just
huge
because of the
improvements.
industry. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, for sure. And then, so I didn't really notice it, but it's kind of hard because, when you're a CRA, you work solo most of the time.
yeah, yeah,
So unless it's an investigators meeting, you're not going to be in a room with a bunch of CRAs all the time. Like you guys work independent, we all work independently. So I mean, I think that it wasn't so much monitoring that I was thinking about. I was just thinking more of an industry level. Like
yeah.
it's not a lot of people of color, but not from a CRA perspective, I guess.
Just from the industry as a
Just in
whole.
general.
'Cause I
Yeah.
think the industry, everybody like always talks bad about the industry for different reasons, but I think that's one area where I've personally anecdotally seen
Hmm.
huge improvements. I mean, now we see
Hmm.
Latinas, we see a lot of black
Hmm.
people monitoring, coordinating Latinas.
Hmm.
I think they've made huge progress, whether intentionally or not. It's
Hmm.
just it happened that way. So,
And I
and that's
think,
that's good. I think that's a
yeah.
good thing for back trickles down to study participants.
Hmm.
Hopefully, hopefully.
Hmm. Well, that's another conversation. But yeah, I think that's, like I said, it's a hidden industry. It's hard. I mean, if you're talking about science, that's one thing, but to talk about pharmaceuticals, medical device, biotechnology, that's another just behind the scenes segment that people are just unaware of. It's just not something that comes to mind when you think about when you get prescription medications or anything
Yeah.
over the counter. Like they don't think about how that package insert or the research, and like no one
They
you know what I
used to
mean, like
not
no
think how
one.
this affects Latinos, blacks, Asians. Now the
Oh,
FDA's seeing like, hey, this
we need
is
more diverse participants. Yeah,
mm,
and that's why I'm kind of um part of my mission is like getting more doctors of color involved in research, and
yeah,
that will trickle down to the patients because patients trust their doctors, and it's a whole
of
thing. But
course. So back to the training. So okay, quintiles, you're
Mhm.
there, you're doing training. When did they send you to your first monitoring visit? Like how long was the training? And then I'm assuming you were a co-monitor. Um, how did that all work, and how quickly were you
Well,
given like freedom to just be on your own?
it was pretty, I mean, we had 2 or 3 weeks of training, just CRA training, period. No assignments, no allocations, no, sites, none of that. So just source documents, ICSGCP, source data verification, like that, what we talk about in the academy. And then you go out on, so you get assigned I got assigned a protocol. I think I had 2 protocols. I forget what they were on.
Wow.
And then I was assigned, I knew you were going to ask me. I don't remember. It was too long ago. I think let me get back to you on that
It
because I
was not
know,
oncology then.
no, it was not
Yeah.
oncology.
Okay.
Oh no, no, that would have been way too early.
That's later. That's later.
Yeah, that's a little bit later. I went on shadowing visits first for all the different types of visits. And then, for pre-study selection, site initiation, interim, and interim visits and closeout visits. Um, but it's hard to say because it wasn't like all in that order. I know I was on a brand new protocol, but you don't do it all in a row. You do it as
Yeah.
the opportunity comes up, and so I shadowed, and then I was being observed in
Hmm.
doing those visits before I was able to go out on my own and do
Yeah, it makes sense because you finish the training, then you do real life stuff, and real life
them.
stuff doesn't happen in order. It happens when it happens. Um,
Right, exactly.
so how long were
But
you at
I was
Quintel's? Like, oh, go ahead.
maybe like I think a year.
Only a year?
Hmm.
Wow. So turnover, they were not really focused yet on retention back then.
No, I
Why'd
mean
you
that's the
leave?
thing. Um, I think I had got another just higher paying opportunity.
This time they found you or you found them again?
Um, that's a good question. I don't recall. I don't
Yeah,
remember.
these things are hard to like to go back and
It's
uh
hard because there's always like, I mean, once you that's kind of what I was saying. Once you get past that threshold and having that 2 years of experience,
yeah.
you get recruiters, you get on their list. The
No, it's
recruiters
hard.
never really the recruiters never really stop recruiting.
It's hard to recall. Like I couldn't even recall how we started working with you at CRA Academy. I just know that we did. So I get it.
It's I remember, but yeah, it's it's
So
been a
only
long
a
time.
year and then another CRO
Mm-hmm.
came through or you found them.
Mm.
Somehow it happened. They're like, hey, boom, how much pay increase was it? Do you remember like approximate amount? Like percentage? Was it significant
Mm,
enough to make you leave?
yeah, I don't remember. I know that my first entry level uh position at there was 65,000.
Wow. Okay.
So it just, the more experience you have, the more money that they offer you.
Yeah.
If
Now
you're,
that's like entry level for in-house CRA.
is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
more or
okay.
less. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
also, like I said, I wasn't a coordinator, I just kind of negotiated that. I know that it would not, I mean, it was about 20 grand more than,
Okay.
what I had before. So I was like, I'll take it.
Did you want to leave because of the increase in salary or like the workload was getting too much at Quintel's?
I don't think it was, I don't think the workload had hit me. I think
Okay.
that I was just used to, or not really used to anything. I just knew that that was just the name of the game.
Okay.
That's just, because when you're monitoring, you're monitoring. You don't really, that's kind of, 2, 3 protocols, different site allocations. You don't know what's going to happen. It's kind of up in the air.
Yeah.
Um, that's
Uncertainty.
just, yeah, you just don't, that's just what monitoring is. And that's just something I think you just get
So
prepared for.
so the next CRO, now you're an experienced CRA, so they pay you more and probably
Mm-hmm.
give you more responsibilities too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
how did that go? When did you start feeling the burnout? Like,
Oh, when did I
was it
start?
this place?
No, I mean, I don't think it was so much the place. I think it was just more of just years of being a CRA. Because once you get the experience, the expectation is higher.
Yeah.
So they're
And they
like,
start
you've been
giving you
doing
more.
this, and you start giving you more. And I mean, I mean, what are the metrics has always been 8 to 10 visits on site every month,
Mhm.
right? So that level of traveling 65, 80% a week, you just get kind of used to it. So I think after maybe, and like I said, I was living in LA, going back and forth, I thought I was still, the burnout came later, like maybe after 5 or 6 years of monitoring.
5 or 6 years. So this next job, how like when was it that you were started thinking about sites? Because they were getting close to when you started
Mm-hmm.
watching my videos and called me.
Mm-hmm. I don't, that's a good question. I think because what was I doing?
What made you think like, hey, maybe I could be a site owner?
I don't even think I was thinking site owner until,
Oh,
yeah, I was more, I guess that's kind of what I was doing, but I was more interested in just working with one doctor and them being the owner of their research or of their like medical practice. And I was just kind of like a contractor. And that's why I was reaching
uh,
out to you, and I started watching your YouTube videos. And then you and Chris approached me about being a site owner in Bakersfield.
that's right.
And I
Okay,
was and
wow,
I was like, heck yeah, that sounds good. I could do that. So I went back to Bakersfield and started
wow.
recruiting. Yeah. So that's what I mean. Like didn't I
So we
wasn't
convinced you to not be a CRA?
I was ready for something new.
You were ready.
Yeah, because
What made you get ready, be ready? Like, why not? Some people just finish their careers and then try to be a lead CRA so they don't have to travel as much.
yeah, I just think that I was just trying to be more entrepreneurial. That was
Uh,
the real thing. I was just trying to be
and you
because
have that, you have that in you though.
yeah, and I was trying to just do something new because I saw your videos and I started watching them and I saw how I was like, "Oh, I know doctors because I keep saying it's a hidden industry. Even doctors don't, I don't think, go through a formal clinical research training in like when they're in medical school.
No.
So my whole thing was introducing doctors to clinical trials, kind of like, similar to what I'm doing now, but like in a different way. So I was just
Mm,
like, I think I knew of a doctor and I did a little bit of recruiting in LA prior to going back to Bakersfield. And that's when I hit you up about the contract.
I
And
see.
then you and I and Chris started talking about, opening a site in Bakersfield.
Because I think I've only been a CRA, contract CRA for like 3, 4 years in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of my career.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's a long story of to why, but um, I could see if I'm in that role and nothing else, that I don't even go to a site and look at, like my mind doesn't think because you're in your reports, like you're one track mind. Like I just need to finish my visit, do my report, and go to the next place. I don't have time to open my eyes and see like this is something maybe I can do. Like
Mm-hmm.
you don't look around. I mean, being a site owner first, I already know
Mm-hmm.
that when I'm monitoring,
Mm-hmm.
but I could easily see how you can just get wrapped up in the weeds and not look like, bird's eye view of the
Mm-hmm.
situation. And I don't know, a lot of CRAs have been waking up to it, but it's site ownership's not for everyone. Matter of fact, it's like in many ways it could be more stressful than being a CRA because you don't really have a guaranteed income. And you're someone
Mm-hmm.
that's done both.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we could segue into the site ownership.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we convinced you. I don't remember that part, but
It's true. It's true. I had
wow.
bought your well, I just remember seeing you on YouTube and I just was,
Well, we were talking a while already at this point. with your
Yeah,
contracts and all that. I
yeah,
remember that.
yeah, yeah. Because you guys thought I owned a site in Bakersfield. You thought I owned my own research site, period. And
Hmm.
I'm like, no, I'm a CRA. I don't know
Yeah.
anything about this.
This was like
And
2012, and we were like, even back then, I was like,
13, yeah, 12, 13. Yep,
small is
yep.
the new big. Like Bakersfield's up and coming market. No one's really doing
Mm-hmm.
research there. We need to get out there,
Mm-hmm.
and who better than Tiffany? And it's still close enough
Mm-hmm.
to Orange County to where I can go
And you
every now
guys
and then.
came up there. Yep.
Yeah, I remember 4 a.m. wake up calls and have to drive over there and do site selection visits. And
Uh-huh.
for whatever reason, it didn't work. The studies were easy to get though.
The studies were easy to get, but I think that I like kind of going off of what you said, how site ownership can be more stressful than being a CRA. It can be if you are the person that has to like getting the studies was one thing. That was well, because my doctors didn't necessarily have clinical research experience,
Hmm.
right? So there was a lot of opportunities and the training part, I think for me is when it just kind of piled up because I had to train the doctors, financing, like our budget was, I think, just a little bit more limited.
Hmm.
Um, the doctors were in the middle of their practice and didn't know that it was going to take all this time.
Yeah,
Their staff was another factor because they're not going to be listening to me if their doctor's not telling them to
no,
listen to me.
no. We have to
Right?
get our own. We have to get our,
You
in
got to do your,
hindsight, it could have worked, but I mean, everything's meant to be for a reason.
yeah, no, I have no regrets. It was a great experience. I saw how it all worked. And then, you know, things happen.
Things happen. I mean, we basically like this is my revisionist history recollection of it, but we finally found a good doctor
Hmm.
because we had one that didn't work out for I mean, if people knew why, it's a whole nother podcast, but
Hmm.
uh we had another one or maybe it was the same guy, I don't even remember,
No,
but
well, yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. You're talking,
yeah.
we shouldn't talk about that.
We got kicked out of someone's office because a big health provider came in and said,
Yeah,
"Hey, thank you for doing all the work.
yeah.
We
And we had a
just bought
whole,
this guy's
hmm
practice, so we're doing their
hmm
research too. Thank you. Get out of here."
well, they never got back to me. We set up a meeting, told them all about what was going on, and they vanished.
Do you know that
And
they called Chris to ask him to negotiate a budget after they kicked us out? They're like, "Oh
no,
yeah,
I did
can you
not.
finish negotiating the budget?" Oh,
After 8 or 9 months, like I remember waiting that long. It was like almost a year.
yeah, but they had the nerve to ask. They kicked us out, and then they had the nerve to ask. They made us hand over all the contracts, and then they had the nerve to ask us to finish the process. I was like, wow, unreal, unreal. But I still think it could have worked, but it was like time to move on probably for everybody.
Yeah.
Um,
We moved
and
on
then
to the CRA Academy.
well, that's when we did CRA Academy, which was
Mm-hmm.
huge. But at that same time,
Mm-hmm.
you became an independent contract CRA.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
love your career because you have experience in everything, every aspect. So
Mm-hmm.
you went on to be the independent contractor, which
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows make a lot more money.
Mm-hmm.
Now is that
Mm-hmm.
a lot more, like double? It could be significantly more.
I mean, I think at that point, the contracts that I was on was $75 an hour in
Okay,
door to door.
door to door.
But uh-huh.
So that means when you leave your house, the time starts to when you get back to your house.
Well, when you get to the hotel,
Oh,
right?
okay, okay.
When you're trapped, so time in the airport, getting to the airport, get to the hotel. You don't get paid in your sleep, unfortunately.
Ah, okay. That would be nice.
Then you leave the hotel and go to the site, and then you know that's kind of how that worked. And then I had at one point a different contract at $85 an hour, and I was a SWAT CRA, and
So for people that don't know SWOT, what does that mean?
I was just covering for a lot of different sites, regardless of like they had hired a bunch of CRAs to do some remonitoring on a project, and
Basically
you just
clean
kind of
up a mess.
cover, yeah, basically, and you cover wherever it is, regardless of the region, because there's regional CRAs, and you stay within the Western region or the Southeast or wherever you may be.
Mhm.
So with that one, I was all over the place. I was
So they
in
basically give you
Detroit,
problem
Florida.
sites and say, hey, here's some problem
It's not
sites.
even so much sites. I think it was for just for the study
Oh,
overall. Yeah, it
okay.
was more for a specific study. And it was, it had I think it was a very short contract. Like it was like 3 months or something like that, just
And
for that particular
at
study.
one time you were juggling. This is one of the benefits of being an independent contractors. You can take on as much work as you want. So at one point you were
Kind of.
juggling, kinda, I know you were juggling like two contracts or
Hmm.
three or two.
Two. No, God, no, not
Two,
three.
but you
Yeah.
were thinking about three.
I had at that time there were a lot of opportunities.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
thing. You get the 2 years of experience, and you're
Wow.
on that recruiter. I mean, the recruiters, they call all the time.
So you were
So
on a plane like just every day of the month
yeah,
for like a year.
yeah. Yeah, it was too much. It was
So
too much.
not sustainable.
No.
What's
But
the worst part about that? Is it the health,
well,
negative health outcomes that it gives you or stress or
I
what?
think I think that when you don't have a work-life balance in any situation, I think that's I think what was lacking, because you're a road warrior. You're out 65 to 80% a week. And and I'm not trying to make it sound negative, but I just think that there comes a point where, you know, it's cool to say that you did that. And for me, it was just time for me to like move on, because I was just really tired of the travel. The travel became a lot.
It's the travel that did it.
Yeah. And I'm not really, I mean, it's the same. Um, I hate to sound so negative about it. It's
Well,
not that I want to be
we have
negative.
to talk the truth
It's a
about monitoring.
it's a great job. Yeah, no, I think that it's a great job, but I think that I'm not old, but the older I got, the less I was just willing to get on a plane. I like the perks. You get I have the Hilton Honor points. I had hundreds of thousands of those.
You fly
Airline
business
miles.
class?
No, I didn't fly business class,
Oh,
but
okay.
because I saved all of mine. I just accrued them.
Right, you say,
Yeah,
now
I
it's
saved them.
contract monitoring, first class every time.
Yeah. No, I mean I could have, but I just didn't. But because we have budgets that we have to stick within, and then our
Yeah,
the travel agency,
they
they
book it.
they yeah, we not the agency, but we have our own platform, and you got to do your expense report, so they give you budgets on how much your flights and
I
hotels should
know. When I
cost.
was contract, they were so small. They were like, you
Oh
stay
yeah,
under this
contracting is
amount.
different.
Yeah, they told me you
Hmm.
stay under this amount and we don't care. So
Hmm.
I learned if I book it early enough. So before I
Hmm.
left the site, I would schedule my next one. And then I would
Hmm.
book it. If I booked it early enough, LA to San Francisco, I could get
Hmm.
first class every time. So I just
Hmm.
got
Hmm.
spoiled. Like now I hate flying
Hmm.
anything but business class. They bring you champagne, they bring you beer as much as you want.
Well, that's another thing. You had good time management.
Well, yeah, because I only had like three sites I had to monitor. I'm not a
Right.
good example, but
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay.
I
Well,
know enough to like know how stressful the job can be. But the
hmm.
travel part, like I got spoiled because it's only an hour flight and it's like I could go first
Hmm.
class. But I can't
Hmm.
imagine like having someone buy my tickets and put me in middle
Hmm.
seat somewhere. Like,
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, we had, well, for some of the companies, we had our own like website to like book, but
Uh,
you would buy it yourself. Like you have your corporate card. We just had, especially when it also like with meals and stuff, there's only so much you could spend on
Okay.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner and all that. But you're also, I mean, talk about travel is one thing, but then it's another thing to, I mean, you have a lot of sites and you have a lot of protocols. Like I've been on like up to 4 protocols at once and like 16 sites.
4 protocols, 16 sites at once.
But they're at different stages. So were for SIV, some were for PSV. 2 of my studies were just straight monitoring. So there was a point where, I mean, they weren't all monitoring visits. They were just like closeout visits. It just varies. And that's, I think, the part of the, you know,
Wow.
it's a lot at times. It could be, yeah. But then, you talk to your manager, you talk to the project man, or not your project manager, but you talk to your line manager. And sometimes, I mean, I would do more than 10 visits in a month,
Hmm.
but it wouldn't be all at once. It would just be like temporary. But that's, I think, part of just being a CRA is that you just don't know what the sponsor and CRO, you don't know what their needs are. So you're there to fill it in, and it's just not always consistent. So I may have had 16 sites, but it wasn't like that was my life for like years. It was like 16 sites for like maybe 6 or 7 months until these visits are done. And then, you
Yeah.
know, but that's just part of being, a monitor. So I think that it was, challenging too,
Yeah.
you
Do you
know.
think we're the same age, basically?
Hmm.
I remember I got into it in my mid-20s and then my 30s. And that,
Hmm.
like my mid-20s and my all of my 30s, I didn't really care about um meaning. I just did
Hmm.
things to do it, like
Hmm.
activity. I was addicted to action, not so much like I didn't care what it's for. Now I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's more mature or what's happening, but it's like I still like
There
the
you go.
action, don't get me wrong, but
Right. But
I
you don't have
look for
time for
like
all that.
I don't know what it is, but
I
are you
don't.
finding the same thing or
Yes. Yes,
so it's
absolutely.
normal. This is normal behavior.
I guess it hit me too. It hit me too. I'm just like, am I like growing up?
Well, the thing with me
Am
is
I
like,
mature? I still like, yeah, but that's the great part about clinical research in general is that it is
yeah.
action. It is a lot of like stuff and it's all new,
Hmm.
except
Hmm.
for things that you've been doing for a long time. But there's always like different therapeutic areas, different
Yes.
technologies,
Yes.
different, people. It keeps it going. But
Well, my point is like you get to a point, whether you're a business owner or a CRA or whatever in this industry, once you have like a decade, you you can start saying yes to everything. Like people are just gonna throw everything at you. And you
mhm,
could literally just say yes, 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 yes to everything. But something happened
mhm,
to me recently where I'm like, yeah, why? And my 25-year-old self would be like, what's wrong with you? What do you
mhm,
mean, why? Who cares? But
mhm,
now I'm like,
mhm.
no, why? Because why am I wasting time doing that if I can do something else? Like
Right.
something happens where you realize it's the effort has to be worth something more than just
Yeah.
doing something.
Right. You want to make the best use of your time.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of why I enjoy like education. I like training.
So the CRA Academy, love it. We've
Love
never
it.
had another teacher. You've been the only one. I think you've only had like 2 sick days. Otherwise, it's just been planned. You've had planned vacations, but where either we skip that
Yeah.
week or me and Chris do it. But like
Yeah.
to actually get sick, it's only happened like once. You're like Cal Ripken Jr. of CRA Academy teaching. How do you do it?
I
You
like
just like it.
it.
You must like it if we're doing it this long.
I really do. And I like the part that I like, I think the most is um I get something back when people say, "Oh, I get it. I understand. I can see
Hmm.
that."
Hmm.
Like it's something about I like I just I don't know. It's just something about making light bulbs go off in people's heads, like when they finally put the whole picture together and it means something and it's something that they actually want to do. Because like I
Wow.
said, it's a hidden industry. People still who know me work no they know I work in clinical research. They don't know, they still, after all these years, it's been 17 years, still don't understand like the concept. And I'm just like, well, like going back to the FDA, the new FDA approved drugs, the commercials and stuff, like it's just, I don't know. I like clinical research. I'm, I think every year I'm getting better at it. There's always like,
Yeah, you're getting really good at teaching. I mean, the students, like just about all of them, we've probably had since 2016, we've probably
mm-hmm,
had at least 300, if not 500 students
mm-hmm,
do our CRA Academy.
that's
And
insane.
yeah, like you've helped so many, I would say about half of them get a job within 6 months. There's a certain
Mm-hmm,
percentage that never get into research because they can't leave their current job. They get paid too much.
mm,
And there's others that just quit. We've had a few
mm-hmm.
like want to become site owners after taking the CRA Academy.
Okay.
But like you've helped a bunch of people get in the industry. So that's, I mean, they're gonna remember Tiffany Bennett for the rest of their lives once they're in this industry. So that's kind of cool. And
Yeah.
I'm glad we were able to do that because I still don't think I could teach it if I had to. I don't know if
Mm-hmm,
maybe I would even enjoy it now, but
mm-hmm.
I'm just not as good, I don't think, as you at teaching like in that 1 hour slot, that live class every
Yeah.
Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, it's, and another thing, just to add on to that, like it's the students for CRA Academy, and then there's also, this kind of goes back to what I was talking about, training doctors
Mm.
and getting into research. I like that too, because that's a different perspective.
And you do that
But
as a consultant. You work with
I do that as a,
nonprofits for breast cancer, right? I
yeah,
remember
uh-huh.
one
Or
time
Lee Smith Cancer Research Foundation.
I remember you were doing like IND applications or something like
Yeah,
that.
I was helping with this for the medical device. So I was helping
Medical
on
device.
the regulatory side, uh, getting that whole thing together. And so yeah, that's the part. Like once you're
Mm,
in research, you go to different levels and different. And now I've never worked in medical device before, but the information is still out there,
hmm
when it comes to getting that like on board with the FDA. And so I just kind of like I do what I can. I look things up and research it, but it's still interesting when it comes to like the regulations and things like that. And then more recently, I've been working with the National Medical Association and training medical students and uh, dermatologists in innate derm.
Ah, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Derm studies are not easy. This is my first experience here in Yuma doing derm. I thought it was gonna be easy.
Mm-hmm.
They're not easy.
Mm-mm. 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 Yeah, I helped do like a registry protocol and yeah, a couple other things. So
So
it's
you're a generalist. You have like
generous.
multi-therapeutic, oncology, device, regulatory,
Mm-hmm.
clinical, site, everything,
Mm-hmm.
training. And I joke that we're old, but we're actually young. Um, in the grand scheme of things. Do you
Mm-hmm.
ever think like, hey, why not clinical trial manager for a CRO or a small biotech or um, get in on the biotech side? Do you ever think about that or like lead CRA because you like training or like line manager? Because you could basically get any job you want.
Nope. Don't even
No.
think about it at all. I'm stuck on education. Remember how you were talking about why?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I feel about it.
Wow.
I
Wow.
I'm that's just where my strengths are, I feel like.
Yeah.
I just feel more accomplished in the education space. Like I really like helping people understand.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily, yeah, like I just like helping people understand. I like explaining it.
And the consulting still gives you chance to get your hands dirty too.
Mm-hmm.
so that
I still learn new things.
you remain current,
Hmm.
but you focused on what your passions are, which is
Yeah.
educating. All right.
Hmm.
I'm sure after this video, somebody's gonna reach out and say, "Hey, you know what? We need a line man. We need a line manager. You don't have to travel. You can just educate." What about onboarding new CRAs at a CRO? Would you do that?
I
Or
mean,
biotechs?
yeah. I mean, yeah. I would, but
I
I think
heard from
there's.
somebody. So we have, well, I don't want to mention her name, but
Hmm.
she helps with our CRA Academy now on the
Hmm.
she was a in-house remote site monitor.
Hmm.
Uh, she said she did it with another CRO. She did like a training. They have like
Hmm.
their own training.
Hmm.
And she said compared to ours, because she took ours too, there is
Hmm.
no comparison. Like ours is so much better. It's not even, it's like comparing like preschool to like high school or college.
Oh, wow.
So these CROs are lacking um training, proper training,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think. I think that's like a whole niche that no one's really looked into.
Yeah, I think that's the I think there aren't very many. Like, and that's kind of why I'm just like the next level would be like CTM, but that's not
Yeah.
really that's not appealing to me.
Mm.
Education is, but there's not a lot in that space, I feel like, because actually don't know why. I just don't think there's a lot. There's just a lot more opportunities for people who want to be CRAs or, line managers and just like different
Yeah.
positions. So I think that I don't know, I can't really say, but I think that there's just not as much opportunity in the education space. I think that companies just rely on the training for that specific position and then that's it. But they
Yeah.
all have their own internal like standard operating procedures or things like that. But I don't think they have, I don't know. I just don't think they put a lot of emphasis on it because people have experience, that's just kind of what you go off of. And then you have your
Hmm.
internal trainings for that company specifically. But as long as I think, you get past the ICH training, which is global, they renew that and do all those things. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Uh, for somebody watching, you've done a lot of education, especially lately, like
Mm-hmm.
teaching. Why
Mm-hmm.
should someone watching consider the CRA Academy? Coming from the co-founder, not me, because they hear from me all the time, but from you, you get to teach every Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, why should they consider it? In your opinion, in your
Um,
honest opinion.
in my honest opinion, I think because of how comprehensive the program is with everything. I mean, you get trained on the pre-study selection visits, site initiation visits, IMVs, closeout. I think how we break down each week and really take it from like a bird's eye view and we narrow it down to like the specifics. Like I try to give as much information as possible and explain everything from A to Z. Um, that I don't want to say that I don't intend to be overwhelming, but sometimes people are like, okay, well, this is a lot of information, but I'd rather give more information than less information. Like I don't want to leave any question unanswered. And I think that through what we go through and how we go through it, and then the scenarios at the end,
Hmm.
you get to practice monitoring, and then you work with the real EDC system. That's the part that I think really shows people okay what it's all about. Like we did all this previous work because I reference weeks 3 and 4
Hmm.
SDR,
Hmm.
source data review, source data verification for weeks 9, 10, and 11 because that's what you're going to be doing. So you get not only like the actual like training, but you actually get to do the work too. So I think it sticks a little more and
Hmm.
it's better that way. So
And then the part
that's.
where I get involved, well, me, Chris, Casey,
Mm-hmm.
Jeslyn, who's new to the team,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Ashley Margot, is the
Mm-hmm.
internship. you know, the
Oh yeah,
internship,
the internship. I didn't even mention
real,
that.
yeah, because you're not
Yeah.
involved in that part, but
All
it's
right,
the
but you
real
have to
world.
yeah, people always ask about that. And like once you pass the final exam, then you have the opportunity to go to
It's
the
a real
internship.
study. You're doing real interim monitoring visit
Yeah.
report on a real study. Once they send
Mm-hmm.
us their first approved, so Casey does the revisions, just like a real
Okay.
lead CRA would do. And then once it's
Mm-hmm.
approved, finalized, you get your resume done by Ashley Margot, and she does a LinkedIn
Okay.
audit for you. Ashley's a remote site monitor for a big CRO. And then we have
Okay.
we just added Jeslyn, who's a remote site monitor. She wants to be a clinical trial manager. She's actually kind of is a clinical trial manager for our CRO when we do like these niche
Mm-hmm.
IITs. She's
Mm-hmm.
teaching because, you know, the industry changed. In-house CRA is more likely to be your first job than CRA now, even if you pass our
Mm-hmm.
class. She's
Mm-hmm.
teaching like she's going to teach a bonus class every month on remote site monitor stuff, in-house
Oh,
CRA stuff,
okay.
just to like get because
Nice.
it's more likely they're going to get that role first. So it's our way
Mm-hmm.
to keep current with what's
Mm-hmm.
happening. And then other
Mm-hmm.
things like getting Viva involved and
Mm-hmm.
start doing. So we're always improving it.
Mm-hmm.
At least we try. I mean, most of the things we do pay off in the end. So, yeah, we put a lot
Yeah.
of time and effort into it, and there's a lot of people now. It used
Mm-hmm.
to be just me, Tiffany, Chris, and
Mm-hmm.
people would just come to California and like shadow us for a week. But I think it's way more sophisticated now, and we're
Mm-hmm.
trying to improve it every every quarter.
Yeah, that's
All
good.
right, Tiffany. Well, here's to another 6 years and more. And anything else you want to say?
Um, come to the CRA Academy. You want to start your career in clinical research.
Yeah, and learn from the best. Somebody who's done it all and could do more, but she's like super passionate. This is why I don't teach it. This is what you do. Like this
Mm-hmm.
is where you excel. So, um, yeah, really good to have you on board, and we've just been growing ever since. You know,
Yeah,
we used to think, all right, are we still gonna be able to get 15 every quarter? One of these
right.
quarters we're not going to get 15, I think, but it's bound to
Yeah.
happen, but maybe not. I mean, it's kind of going the opposite way now. It's going in
Yeah,
like over
it's
20.
getting yeah, I know. I know. That's a good thing.
Yeah,
People are
well, it's a
more
testament to like how busy things are. And I
mm-hmm.
expect things to stay busy for a while, regardless of
Mm-hmm.
the macroeconomic context that we're in. Like I think clinical
Mm-hmm.
research kind of sheltered this time from everything else, mainly due to the pandemic and then
Mm-hmm.
the explosion of innovation that's coming out that's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you everybody for watching, listening. Thank you, Tiffany Bennett, for joining us. If you want to hear more about her, actually, her email will be underneath this
Mm-hmm.
video. She's crazy. She
Yes.
put her email here. So she's opening up to everybody just reaching out. But there you go. And if you're a biotech or CRO, you're gonna have to win her over, but she might be able to train your whole organization. All right. Thank you, Tiffany. Like, subscribe,
Thank
comment,
you.
share. Catch you guys later. Bye bye.